Well, we've got quite a lot from America, haven't we? So we should talk about this. There's a signal chat, like a WhatsApp chat you'll know about, between major figures in the administration, including the vice president. They were swapping details of an imminent attack on the Houthis in Yemen. They say they weren't secret and they weren't war plans. As a result, the last 24 hours, the Atlantic online paper has put out some more stuff which shows that they clearly were pretty detailed war plans, so that defence has gone. They now accuse the Atlantic editor of tricking his way into the chat. So that's going on. There we are. Mike Waltz admits he made Signal War admin group. So he put the Atlantic editor in, but he tricked his way. I mean, it's chaos. And you can see the tensions in Trump's camp because one of his great supporters is a woman called the Congresswoman Marjorie Taytlor Greene. And she snapped at Sky News' Martha Kellner about her nationality. Quite interesting. Have a look.
Anybody else?
Should the Defence Secretary...
What country are you? Wait, what country are you from?
From the UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
Okay,
and you no. You should care about your own borders.
Do you care about American lives being put at risk?
Let me tell you something. Do you care about people from your country? What about all the women that are raped by migrants?
Do you care
No,
about
by migrants. No, do you care? Okay, you're done.
Do you care about American lives
no,
being put at risk?
You know what? I don't care. I don't.
Members fighting for your country.
I don't care about
and
your
vice
fake news.
president
Do you have a
and your
relevant
defense
question?
secretary?
Yeah, this is an American journalist. Thank you.
The American journalist then rightly says, well, I'd like to know the answer to her question. That's weird. Gitta, what do you make of that?
It's so weird, and it's so rude, and it's so offensive, but it's also so counterproductive. They don't realise how ridiculous they end up looking when they do that. And, you know, we can all throw insults and all that, but it's just...
And also, I was looking up last night, how many British servicemen and women died in Iraq and Afghanistan, which were American-led wars? Yeah. 636, you know, and we're now not their ally anymore? What do you make of it?
I have to say, watching that, it's the first time I've seen it. I am disappointed in the behaviour and the lack of respect. In the UK, I think we've gone over and above, and Sakia and the government have tried really hard to work with the Americans. But I'm just saddened that that's their opinion of us, and we just need to just keep talking, really, and hopefully we will get them to respect us just a little bit more. But it did come across as just totally disrespectful.
Yeah, well, it's called America
sad.
First, isn't it? And we should get into what Donald Trump has been up to. So, first up, he was at a Women's History Month event, and he says he wants to be remembered as the fertilisation president. Let's have a listen.
We're going to have tremendous goodies in the bag for women, too. The women, between the fertilization and all of the other things that we're talking about, it's going to be great. We're joined today, fertilization. I'm still very proud of it. I don't care. I'll be known as the fertilization president, and that's okay. That's not bad. That's not bad. I've been called much worse.
There are shades of Boris Johnson because who you worked for, but it goes way beyond.
Yeah,
he plays the room, doesn't he? You know,
he does, and clearly they were laughing. So maybe I'm missing something, but it just seemed bizarre for me. I assumed he was talking about fertilizer, and there's an issue with fertilizer in the
No. This is about reproduction.
Literally fertilizing women, which is quite a grotesque way of describing it. But yeah, I just don't know where he's coming from.
But here's the insight into Trump that came later at the same event, which is this thing about transgender, which he's really banging on about. He criticised the Biden government's record on those issues.
For 4 long years, we had an administration that tried to abolish the very concept of womanhood and replace it with radical gender ideology. Maybe you heard something about that. They destroyed women's spaces and even tried to replace the word mother with the term birther person. A mother became a birther person. What's that all about? Then you wonder why they lost. They're trying to figure out why did they lose.
So he then announced there are only two genders, and he said, why would anyone campaign on something that only 2% of the population think, which is that there are more than two? What do you think?
Again, I think that in this world, there are many different people. We've got to respect what their views are relating to sex and gender. I've got myself into problems with this one before.
Which side of the line were you on it?
For me, I come from a background of health, nursing, and my view is you've got to respect people for their race, their colour, for who they are. And if someone says to me, I want to be called whatever, or it's not for me to say, I can't do that. I can't call you.
Could I call myself black, for example?
Well, if you call yourself black, I could tell you, well, to look at you, you're not black.
Okay.
But I can't stop you from doing it.
Yeah. Would you? But I mean, Ali G famously is a white guy who said, "Is it because I is black?" And people accepted his definition of himself as black. This is different. This is about people born male calling themselves women.
Yeah, I think there's a biological reality to being male
Yeah.
and to being female. And it's one thing to be respectful and kind and tolerant. It's another to sort of invade women's spaces with people who are biologically men. I think it's quite right to call that out, and it's quite right to push back the tide on that. And I'm glad that we're doing it. And so on that, he's less mad than he is on other things.
Okay. There's another
But
story.
but just
Go
to
on.
add
Yeah,
to
please,
that,
yeah.
because I do actually agree with you on this.
You sound. I'm trying to work out. I'm still trying to work out which side of the fence you're on.
I'm on the side of the fence.
Women,
My personal view is I'm a woman,
yeah.
and women must be respected as women. But I do think if someone says, I want to be treated as a woman, you can respect that, but it doesn't mean that they go into women's spaces.
I think I see. So you would be called gender critical in a kind of... Yeah,
Absolutely.
okay, right. So you're kind of on the same page there. But the funny thing about Trump, just looking at this as a sort of political observer, is that it's an open goal. He's just like, because the left have decided that there's a whole debate here to be had, and he's just gone and scored 5 goals on it without anyone stopping him.
I think the relief across the world among many people who felt they can't say anything when the US president, and most of them possibly loathe him, but when he says there's two genders, there's male and female, there's a sort of hallelujah moment for a whole load of people who feel they can't say something which they think is patently
And he
obvious.
went on to say that. We played a different clip, but he went on to say that it's the policy of the US government that there are only two genders. Has anyone in the room got a problem with that? And there's a silence, and then he looks at the press and he said, I thought one of you was going to say you did. Because he said only 2% of our population disagree. Interesting. Separately, cars, tariffs, Gitto, 25% now. This is like a down table story. There's so much going on.
It's in any other sort of any other news day that would be massive. And I've done a year of economics at university or whatever, but you don't need to be a great economist to know that tariffs are generally a bad thing. They lead to inflation going up. Bad news for working class people who voted for Trump because they thought prices were too high. Bad news for people who import and export and all that. Bad news for car production.
Is that right? I don't know. I sort of think that all of that stuff was taught to you pre-globalization. So it's before we ended up with a situation where China could subsidize steel production and dump cheap steel on Scotland and put all their steelmakers out.
Yeah, so you can get into, a more sophisticated economic argument about what you do about, currencies, because China's had an advantage from deliberately keeping its currency low versus our currency. So if you address that, rather than actually stop the sort of production, there are better ways of doing this than literally building up the equivalent of walls that stop things coming through, because each side will suffer. And it's going to create bad will, and then we will retaliate, and, before you know it, everybody's poorer. I'm
starting to think we're heading for a massive stock market crash or something. I just can feel we're on the edge of something, because markets in the end, they do take flight if they suddenly...
They pull the plug.
They might do. And we've had these big ones in 87 and 2008. And Trump's playing with fire a bit here, isn't he, Paulette?
I think he's playing with fire a great deal, but I'm more worried about our car makers, because in areas like mine, in the West Midlands, we've got Jaguar Land Rover, and companies like that with 25% tariff, I'm not sure where they will stand going forward. People like Aston Martin, I'm worried about them at the moment. So what I'm hoping is the government will be able to make some sort of a deal that although the tariffs are coming in, something may be done to protect these companies. Otherwise, I fear what will happen in the next 12 to 18 months.
Okay, let's just hear Trump announcing the tariffs.
And what we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff. But this is something that people have wanted to do, presidents have wanted to do for a long time. A lot of them didn't understand it. It wasn't a priority for them. But foreign countries understood it very well. And they've really ripped us off at levels that nobody's seen before.
Okay, there we go. Well, let's see. It's a fascinating world. I mean, all I know, having visited the US, on and off for a long time, they had the terrible cars for years because they bought their own cars. They had those Oldsmobiles, those massive, big, boxy cars. And it's only when they imported that their cars got better. It's going to be fascinating to watch this one. Okay, more after the break.